Hi, this is Richard McMartin. Welcome to the route briefing for the 2018 Torpedo SwimRun Cape Town. We are extremely excited about the race this year, and thanks to all of you for your support and for joining us. It's been great watching Torpedo grow and watching the enthusiasm that everyone is taking on the race with. So, unfortunately, this is quite a detailed brief. I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible, but I'm going to go through quite a few different points. So, if you want to pause the video now and go make yourself a cup of coffee, and then come back and we'll go through it all. It'll probably be 10 to 15 minutes in length. So starting at the race day checklist, you would have received this in an email yesterday. I'm not going to go through it now point by point, but just to let you know, there are very important details. I want you to read through this whole checklist. There's no sort of marketing blurb in here. These are all very important items of the compulsory items that you need to have. The details about the shuttles that will take you. It tells you what time you have to arrive for check-in, what time the shuttle departs, and what time your race starts. It talks about just some additional details about the shuttles. There's 4 golden rules to swimrun. Please read and understand all of them. The cutoffs en route, the prize giving, and then lastly and importantly, the 3 energy points out en route and the finish line energy point and what you can expect at all those points. So take a look at that email you were sent last night, and please go through this checklist. So then onto the route. There are 12 sections to this. So the route's 16 kilometers, just over 3 k's of swimming, 13 k's of running, and that's broken up into 6 swim and 6 run segments. The details of each of these individual sections is on our website on the Torpedo SwimRun Cape Town page. So if you want to have these open on a separate tab while I'm going through this video to look, there's a good reference to how long each segment is. So then onto the Google Earth flyover. So there's the route, absolutely fantastic, 16 k's along the Atlantic seaboard. So the start is at Sandy Bay. However, everyone meets at Clifton 4, and this is where you park your car. So there's the parking lot opposite the entrance, which takes you down to Clifton 4 and the Surf Lifesaving Club. This is the parking lot where the shuttle check-in will happen on Sunday morning, and your equipment safety check will be done, and where you'll get in the shuttles that will take you to the start of Sandy Bay. Your parking is all in the public areas around Clifton 4. And you again refer to that checklist to see what time your shuttles will depart. So the shuttle will then drive you along the route in reverse. It will give you a good opportunity to look out of the routes and see what you're expecting. It will come down Seikabosi to the only robots and hot bay, and then up the back of Krunersuk sand dune to where the start is. So we've got a great problem this year in that the race numbers have grown. So we're sitting on a sold out field. In the past, we used to transport the athletes to the start in smaller little shuttles, which used to drop you right at the start line. This year, because of the bigger numbers, we are in buses, and the buses can't make it up the last stretch of the steep little brick road here. So the buses are going to drop you at the boom at the bottom. This is what happens with all of our tours. We get dropped at the boom, and it's a good warm-up walk. It's unfortunately quite steep, but it's just over sort of 100 meters up to the start line. Then you'll be overlooking the start and under starter's orders, ready to take on the Torpedo. So just a quick word while we are on this section of route. So there's unfortunately been a spate of incidents in Table Mountain National Parks, and Sandy Bay is one of those areas. Because it's so secluded and so isolated, it is susceptible to incidents of crime. So you're all going to be in your batches, and you are again in teams of 2, so stick with your partner. But just please, whenever you are in these isolated areas, just be on the lookout for any, it is a crime hotspot, so just please be on the lookout. Okay, so segment number 1, it's a steep downhill run, which takes you down to Sandy Bay. I'm just going to reverse just 1 second. The one other thing that you're going to have to do at the start line is there's the first timing pod, which you check yourself into the start line. So the the race checklist details that there's a timing pod at the start of every swim and at the finish of every swim. The only exception to this is this first section of Sandy Bay, because you're all going to be strung out in a line over here. When you hit the beach, we've moved the timing pod from Sandy Bay Beach to the start. So the check-in to the first timing pod is actually at the start. So before the start line, as you get off the shuttles, you walk up the hill, you tap yourself into the timing pod, and then there is no timing pod on Sandy Bay Beach. Okay, so this really cool downhill beach run on a little single track beach path. It brings you out onto Sandy Bay Beach. Our sponsors Ion will be set up on the beach with their start tent if the wind's not blowing too strong. So the swim entry is from the Ion tent. It's around this large slab of granite, and our life-saving teams that are supporting us, we've got the various clubs. We've got the local clubs from the route and NSRI and some additional boats that are supporting us. They are going to drop a buoy at the point when you go around the granite, at the point that you're going to go straight into the finish line here. This is a finish line on rocks. It's not sand. So be aware of waves. Be on high alert. This is not a safe transition as you would get into triathlon. This is a race course out in the open ocean, and you're coming into rocks. So look out for waves. Keep a lookout behind you. You have to come in between the sets if the waves are big. It's not forecast to be big, but just be on the lookout. So you were around the buoy, which will be placed out from the granite slab of rock, and then from that buoy you swim straight to the Ion guys again, who will be on these rocks with their flags. Just a point on two danger areas here. If there's big waves, which it's not forecast to be, there is a wave and a bit of a surge that comes off this slab of granite. That's not much of a, although it looks scary, that's not much of a problem. It just pushes you away from the slab of granite. The problem with it though is that people see it and they head too far in the direction of the Llandudno side, and they end up coming up onto the rocks over here, and this is quite a nasty little point over here. So when you round the buoy, stay as close as you can to this granite slab, so from the buoy to the Ion finish, that line will direct you straight to where you need to go. So do not get pushed onto this left hand side as you're coming in, trying to avoid this surge over here. Okay, so that's the first Sandy Bay swim. It's then a fantastic run along the single track path, which brings you out at the back line of Llandudno and to Llandudno rocks. There'll be some marshes which will lead you. Cool little rock hopping section. You get to the Llandudno rock jump. Again, tap yourself into the rock jump. The lifeguards will direct you the best place to jump. And as there was in Sandy Bay, there's going to be a buoy positioned in the water. And this buoy is at, again, the perfect place to then swim directly to the sponsor on the beach. It's GoPro on Llandudno Beach. And again, that buoy leads you on the correct route. So there's a rip current that comes out here. There's another rip current that comes out here. And there's pretty big waves on this side over here. So this here is the best line to get you from backline into the beach. Llandudno lifesaving is going to be set up here. There's going to be numerous sort of boats and lifesavers in the water. So you're in good hands, but just once again, once you round the buoy, swim hard to the sponsor finish. Llandudno is the only swim where there's an optional run round. So I know quite a few of you have got a fear for Llandudno. There can be a very big and a very steep wave which breaks on the beach here. So this is an optional, swim and an optional run. So the swim I've explained. If you take the run, you'll come to the rocks here to the start point of the swim. Tap yourself into the timing pod and then follow. There's a single track which takes you round the side of the rocks here and onto the beach. So follow that single track which then pops you out onto Llandudno Beach. When you reach the beach, there's we call it the penalty box. There's a 15-minute stopover. So there will be a crew member from Torpedo on the beach at the GoPro setup. Go and check yourself in with him. He will then time 15 minutes and you'll be held on the beach and after 15 minutes, you can then tap yourself effectively out of the swim and continue with the route. Then this is now a steep climb, so it's the only climb of the race, and it's quite a brute of a climb. So it takes you from Llandudno Beach up a really cool single track path, not a lot of people know about it, and then onto Victoria Road and the first of our energy points. So this is Power Bar. This is the parking lot where they sell the curios, and it's got a fantastic view back out over the route and over Llandudno. So that is energy point number 1. Victoria Road, and every road that you're going to cross, 1, 2, up here and on the yellow line, Victoria Road, every road is open. There are no road closures. So please, when you're crossing a road, follow your usual traffic rules when you're crossing a road. And when you're running along Victoria Road, please stay within the yellow line. There's a big cycling race next weekend, the double century. The teams are out in full force training. They're going to be coming down Victoria Road. There's a lot of cars, there's a lot of spectators. So please run in single file within the yellow line down to Oudekraal. So this is my favorite swim segment here. It's the longest swim segment, but it's definitely the most beautiful. It's the most protected, and generally the visibility is the best. So the guys from Second Skins are going to be set up at Oudekraal. You'll get directed into Oudekraal. You do not run down to the beach at Oudekraal. The beach is over here. You run down onto the rocks of Oudekraal. So the whole route is marked. There are markings the whole way, so you don't have to know all these areas. If you're from out of town, you don't have to know these areas exactly. So just to let you know, it is marked, but this brief just gives you a good indication so you know what to expect. So this is the longest swim. From the rocks where you start, you can see the 12 apostles. You can see this point over here that you'll swim past. And in the distance, you can see these 2 sets of rocks here. So that signals the end of the swim in the bay that you're going to go into, Cozy Bay over here. So the swim is past that first point, past the 12 apostles. This is where the Antipolis shipwreck is. If the visibility is good, there's a good chance you'll see it. And then, so past the 12 apostles, when you get to these rocks, this is the route into Cozy Bay. This is the only section of the routes, or of the swim routes, where there are 2 lines to take. So this GPS track that you're looking at now, this was from the race last year. It was on a super low tide. It was not possible to head through these rocks, so the teams had to go around. So the rules clearly state that while you're on the swim, so from the beginning of the swim to the end of the swim, your body may not leave the water. So you can't ever sort of come out on the rocks and decide you're going to run along the rocks. And you also cannot, so if there's a shortcut, which there is a shortcut over here, it's this little section in between the rocks, the rules state your body cannot leave the water. So it's looking like it's going to be possible to take the shortcut. So the tide is low tide was at 5 a.m. in the morning, so it's going to be a good few hours after low tide, which means that the sneak is most probably going to be open. So once again, if you can make it through here without leaving the water, so if you can keep your body in the water and pull yourself through the rocks, then this little sneak through the rocks is on. If you can't, you're going to have to turn around and swim around the rocks into this cool little channel, which brings you out at Cozy Bay. So that's the end of the 3rd swim segment. This is then, let me just get the second part of the route up here. So this is the second part of the route now, and this for me is probably the hard. Although the last run you went on had the big climb out of Llandudno, this is probably the hardest run. It's getting quite hot. I think your body has been quite knocked by this long swim through the cold water, and this run always feels very tricky. So the guys from Red Bull are going to be activating at the start. They're going to be pumping some music, getting your getting your vibes going before you take on this long road run. And it takes you again along Victoria. The views are fantastic. If you look up to the mountains on your right hand side, this is the famous 12 Apostles. You will have a view in front of you of Lion's Head, and you'll be able to see the Table Mountain cable car in front of you to your right. So there's great views along this road to keep your mind off the pain. So you come into Buckhoven. There will be a marshal at the steps, at the Buckhoven steps, which takes you down to the beach. So the marshal will direct you to run past him, and this is to bootleggers, and this is the last energy point out on the route. So this is the only section of the route where you double back on yourself. So you run past the marshal to bootleggers, the energy point. Do not keep going from bootleggers. That is then off the route. Run back to that marshal and then down the steps, which takes you onto the rocks in front of Buckhoven. And this is a great section. It's a very technical boulder hopping section, which brings you past the NSRI base at Buckhoven. In front of the rocks, these are fantastic houses here on the side of Buckhoven Bay. All very technical, and it brings you to Beta Beach and our partners Summit, who are going to be set up at Beta Beach. So Buckhoven Swim has seen a few variants over the tours and over the last two races. With the forecast wind that is blowing on Sunday, we're going to take it's not really a beeline, but it's so beeline is just out to a buoy and straight back in. That's for big swell. We're going to take a safer option, and it's the same option we did in November last year. So just the normal swim is across the bay, and you get out at the tidal pool on the other side. So we're not doing that. We are doing the same swim as we did last year. So from Summit Beta Beach, you swim to the guys from Squirt on this little beach, right sort of in the corner of Buckhoven Bay here. So you've all nicknamed the swim Culpable Homicide. There's a lot of kelp here. I know a lot of you don't like kelp. It is a very safe place to be. When you're in the kelp, you can't get blown around too much by the wind. The waves don't affect you too much, so it is a safe place to be. There is a lot of kelp. You have to find the best line through it. I think this GPS track does show actually a very good line. You have to, instead of going directly there, almost swim a bit out to your left and then in on this channel over here. Over here, there's a lot of kelp. It is going to be heading towards high tide, especially for the back markers. So the slower you are, the less kelp you'll have to deal with when you get to Buckhoven. But it's a really unique little swim. I'm being positive, saying unique swim across Buckhoven Beach. Okay, so then from Squirt up onto Victoria Road again, follow the yellow line. Excuse me, follow the yellow line onto the red brick pathway, and then you get onto Camps Bay Beach. So last year there was just a swim out to a single buoy, and then back to the same spot on the beach. This year we are going to place two buoys at Camps Bay. So you'll get to the start point. So don't worry about those two timing points over there. So you'll get to the start point where you'll tap yourself in to a timing point. You then swim out to the first buoy. It's always clockwise around the buoys. Swim to the second buoy, again clockwise, and then back to the beach and the Subaru setup. So I just want to say that again to confirm. So there's going to be two Subaru setups on the beach. There's going to be the Subaru swim entry and the Subaru swim exit. And there'll be a timing pod at the entry, and there'll be another timing pod at the exit. So you swim out from Subaru, round the buoy, and to the exit swim. Then a run across Camps Bay Beach. Camps Bay does get hit quite badly with the southeaster, so it's going to be blowing hard from your right hand side of your right shoulder. Along Camps Bay Beach, over the rocks, Glen Beach, and then another favorite little spot of the route, this little Glen Beach cave. It's a very I know the back markers. There's you have to climb up the rocks here, You have to sort of, it's a very technical little section through this cave. I know that they struggle later in the route. They're very tired, and it's hard to sort of maneuver their bodies through all these little sections. So that's some excitement waiting for you at the end of the race. You run up onto the Maidens Cove grassy area, through Maidens Cove, and this is all going to be very well marked by the Subaru guys. And this brings you to now the last swim into Clifton. So follow the route marking all the way to the rocks right at the end here. And again, this is now the last sponsor swim entry, the last swim tap-in, timing tap-in, and the last swim onto Clifton. Clifton waters, this is now later in the later in the morning. The southeaster is really going to be pumping, but luckily Clifton is protected quite nicely from the southeaster. So the last short swim onto the finish line, and the guys from Hot Bay Spa will have some finish line food for you, and that's the end of the race. So looking back at it, there's 12 sections. None of the sections by themselves is that much of an obstacle, but when you start stacking up these 12 segments and you start adding in the cold water, it's a big achievement, and I hope all of you have an absolutely fantastic experience. So there is a big southeaster that's forecast. So on the email that you were sent last night, there was a little weather briefing video. You can give that a watch. If you're not going to watch it, just know that there's a very strong southeaster which blows. It's going to be blowing in from your right hand side. There's a couple of tips in that video, or a couple of things to watch out for when you're swimming, and talking about the glare as the sun comes up over these mountains over here. So if you want, you can give that video a watch. And that wraps up the route briefing. We'll see you later this afternoon. So it's Friday. We'll see you at Mojo Market between 4 and 7. And then there are two just additional plans for the weekend if you want to join us. On Saturday, so tomorrow, at Clifton at 10 o'clock. There's just going to be an informal meeting. If any of you want to test out your wetsuit, your race vest, your shoes, your hand pull paddles, your pool boy, come to Clifton 4 at 10 o'clock. There's no set course, there's no set route, but there's just going to be a gathering of anyone who wants to have a warm-up swim and test out their Clifton, so test out their equipment. Clifton's for those of you from out of town, it's a fantastic, fantastically protected little bay, and it offers some nice safe swimming just out from backline. So that's the first thing tomorrow. And then after the race, if you want to join us for a celebration and a sundowner, up the Glen Road, which I've lost my bearings a bit here, but up the Glen Road, there's a place called the Roundhouse. It's a fantastic place. They've got beautiful lawns at 5 p.m. on Sunday after the race. Join us for a sundowner. Our friends from Red Bull and CBC will have some free product there. Come enjoy a nice drink, and bring your Torpedo swim cap, which is your ticket to the free drinks. Hope to see you there.